Hello and welcome back to the Budget Knitter podcast channel. My name is Spargur. I'm your host. I am coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada, where I live with my 2 dogs and my husband. I'm here in my bedroom today in front of my yarn stash because I just feel a little bit at home right here in this little corner. This is not normally where I film, but I kind of just like being around the yarn. Anyway, just a couple things real quick. You can find me on Ravelry as WSpargurKnits. You can find me on Instagram as @WillMSU. Twitter is @WSpargurKnits as well. There's a Facebook group for this, which is facebook.com/thebudgetknitter. And then you can also email me if you have any questions about anything you ever see on my channel, and that is in the video description box below. And then there's also a Ravelry group for this podcast channel, and you can just search the Budget Knitter in the groups on Ravelry and it should pop right up. We've got a couple threads going in there. If you are joining or if you are part of the Flax Sweater Knit Along, there's a couple threads in there for you. If you ever have any questions, comments, concerns about the podcast or anything that I do here on my channel, there's a thread where you can leave me things like what could I do better on, or what do you not like, or what do you like. Any of those things would be great. And then my favorite is the Finished Objects of 2018 thread, where we are celebrating the creativity and the productivity of finishing objects in the year of 2018. So I hope you will pop over to Ravelry and join those things that are happening over there. So today's a little different. I thought today might be fun to do a little question and answer session. You guys leave me so many amazing comments on my YouTube channel as well as Instagram, and sometimes on Facebook as well. Today I just kind of want to go through some of the YouTube comments that you have left me, and if you have any questions I'll try to answer those, and then I also just kind of want to acknowledge that some of you have left me comments, because I know I try to respond when I can, but I did have a couple of videos where if I responded it would throw some things off, like the giveaway on episode 15. If I responded it was going to throw off the comment number, so I didn't respond on those. But anyways, I was going to cycle through some of the more recent comments, and if you have any questions or anything like that, I was going to go ahead and answer that for you. If you ever have any questions, feel free to send them to me or leave a comment on a video. You can tag me on Instagram, anything like that, and you might end up in a video in the future. So let's just get right to it. So the first one here, by the way, I'm not going to mention anybody's names. Some people don't like to have any names or anything mentioned on the internet, so out of respect, I'm just going to read the comment. If it is your comment, you are more than welcome to take credit for it, but just out of respect for people, I know that you left the comment, but at the same time, like, privacy is still the thing and I want to be respectful. So, first one here. Where did you get the glass heads from? Love the setup, makes me feel more at home than just watching some fancy store podcast setting type video. So this commenter is talking about these. I have 2 of these. I have this one that's clear, and I have one that's purple. I don't know if I can get it without moving stuff. I have this one. And I actually got these, or actually, rather, my husband got them at Home Goods. Home Goods is like one of those TJ Maxx type stores. It's one of the markdown name brand store type places, but Home Goods is more for like home decor. So that's where we got those. I know several people have gotten them from like Hobby Lobby or places like that. I really don't have kind of a set answer for where you can get them. That's just where I got mine. And of course the issue with Home Goods is they never have the same thing twice. So it's kind of a hit or miss when you find it. You could probably also check like thrift stores, flea markets, or swap meets, whatever they call it in your area. In Las Vegas they call it a swap meet. In Kentucky they call it a flea market or an antique mall. All of those things, you could probably find some in those places. Great podcast. You should get the Ann Budd Handy Top-Down Sweaters book. She even has an ebook, perfect for shaping the neck in a raglan and all sweaters. I truly recommend. All sizes, you can test knit the child pattern. Great for destashing. You'll love it. It's worth every penny. So in a video I mentioned that I had knit the flax sweater and I hated the way the collar turned out. It boat-necked, and that's not what I was looking for when I was knitting the sweater. I wanted something that didn't pull on my shoulders and something that was a little lower in the front. And so far my experience with knitting sweaters is that they all boat-neck. And that's kind of an issue for me because I don't like the way it rubs on the front of my neck. So I mentioned that. So this person is mentioning this book by Ann Budd, Handy Top-Down Sweaters. And I hadn't heard of this before, but I'm definitely thinking about checking it out because I also mentioned that I was going to try to design one using short rows and stuff that might work better, but it looks like there are a lot more there are people more knowledgeable than I in areas where somebody has clearly tried to figure this problem out already. And I think instead of trying to be an innovator, which I think it would still be really cool to try out my idea and see how it works, but I want to see how other people have done it, and if my idea differs, still give it a try. I don't know. I think some of the joy of knitting is figuring things out, even if somebody else has done it. Like, I think there's just kind of this really neat aspect of trying to figure something out, and when it works, and it's awesome. So I don't know. We'll see. But I definitely do want to look for that book. Good things happen to good people. You are a good person. Oh, thank you so much. That really does. You have no idea how much it brightens my day just to have somebody say that. So good to see you. Your shawl is gorgeous. I'm on the lookout for yarn to make one. If you throw some short rows on the neck of a sweater, it will create the crew neck you were looking for. Try the book, The Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters by Anne Budd. Have a great day. So see, a lot of people have read this, or have gotten this book that I haven't. Clearly I need to check it out. Crocheting with Karen Simply Soft is easy. The yarn slides off the hook like a dream. The ends are a pain. I weave in my ends over themselves 4 or 5 times, then sew it into itself. I can usually get 2 adult men's hats out of one skein. So I did a yarn review for Karen Simply Soft, and I talked about how I had never crocheted the yarn, which I ended up discovering was a lie. I had crocheted 2 rows with Karen Simply Soft. I just don't really remember doing it. Anyway, it's great, and I definitely recommend the yarn if you haven't used it before, but this person is also saying that the ends are a pain. Weaving in the ends on Karen Simply Soft is really difficult. It's a really slick yarn, it doesn't want to stick to itself, and even if you do tie it and weave it in, it sometimes still comes unraveled. So it's one of those things that you've got to really be dedicated in making sure that that end is not going to come unwoven. Don't know yet if you have also tried Red Heart Soft or Soft Baby Steps. If you like Karen Simply Soft, I think you will like the Red Heart also. So this is one thing that I really find interesting about the knitting community is that, and just kind of yarn manufacturers, everybody seems to have like the same type of yarn, but each brand has a different name for it, and they might like change the formula just a little bit. But I guess the best example is Karen Cakes. There's Karen Cakes, but then there's also Lion Brand Mandala, and then there's Bernat Pop, and then there's the, I think you find it at Joann's, it's the Sweet Roll Cakes, and then Hobby Lobby has their own version of the self-striping cake. So that's a really interesting thing, and so this was interesting to run across, is that there's a Red Heart Soft or Soft Baby Steps. I had not heard of those before, but I'm interested to see how they compare to Karen Simply Soft. This one has to do with the knit-along. I might actually address that in a knit-along video. Okay, to make a crew neck that doesn't boat out, the best way to do it is to work back and forth in straight knitting, increasing on your raglan increases, adding a few stitches at the beginning and end of each row until you have 2 to 3 inches completed. Then you join your stitches to the front and start knitting in the round. This allows the back of the neck to be higher than the front, giving you some room. Most times you will have to then pick up stitches along the neck to knit a separate collar, rather than casting on and making your ribbed neck. Hope this helps. That does help. Thank you very much. Also, I will go ahead and mention her because this is actually a podcast. This is the Knitters Party podcast. I love her channel. She's got a lot of really cool things that she talks about, and she's a really great knitter, and everything that I've seen of hers that's a work in progress or a finished object is always so beautiful. So I definitely thank her for this advice. Her name is Megan. She's living in Cairo, Egypt right now. But no, I definitely thank her for this advice. And that's another thing. There are so many things that I'm still learning. So all of you who are giving this advice, thank you so much. These are things that I didn't know, and I really appreciate it. Oh, put it in totes by Rubbermaid. It will keep it fresh. So, if you remember, I was gifted a lot of yarn, and I was really struggling to kind of figure out what I was going to do with it before I bought the shelf. So a lot of people had tips like you can get the under the bed roll-away tubs or whatever you need to do, or just Rubbermaid totes. What are they called? Just plastic tubs with lids. My bed actually sits on the floor, so I don't really have room to put anything under my bed. and I have a really small place, so cluttering it with tubs wasn't really an option. I have to go up, and in order to do so, I have to use what available space I have, and the available space I have is out in the open. So if I'm going to do something that involves storing things out in the open, I definitely need it to look kind of fun and crafty. Like, I knew that this was going to have to be displayed if I didn't want it to look like I was still moving in. So this was my best option. I agree with practice knits. I also do that with sewing. It's called a muslin and is a very traditional technique. I also agree on the expensive project bags, why I spend a lot on bags. Here's my idea for cheap project containers. In the house, I like to use cheap plastic baskets because it's easier to see what's inside and pull the yarn out. I like your table runner pattern. Okay, so this covers a couple things. I think this is actually on one of my first podcasts, number 1 or 2. I tend to do what are called practice knits for myself. If I'm not exactly clear on a pattern, or it's going to try out a new technique or a new garment or something I've never done before, I typically don't stray from the pattern the first time because I'm still learning the construction and how everything is put together. If I knit it a second time, or if I like the pattern enough and I knit it a second time, I might make some modifications the second time. But the first sweater I ever knit, I didn't even do a gauge swatch. I wasn't even really worried about whether or not it was going to fit. I just wanted to knit a sweater to see if I could understand how it was put together and go from there. I'm really happy I did that because the second sweater I knit actually fits and I'm really proud of it. So that's a really cool thing. I didn't realize that so many crafts there are so many people who practice a pattern and then they make their modifications later. I think that's a really interesting thing. Also, it's great for destashing and you can always give the first one away. So cheap project containers. I don't buy all of the fancy project bags. I really can't afford to. Sometimes they're like anywhere between $30 and $50 for a bag. And when I have reusable grocery bags, like the things that you can buy at Smith's or Kroger or Ralph's or at Walmart, just about everybody has a reusable shopping bag that you can purchase now in their store. So I tend to have a lot of those laying around, and that's what I use for my project bags. I also have bags that people gift me, or just regular plastic shopping bags. I think that's enough if I'm just keeping it at home. When I travel, I tend to just use the reusable shopping bags. I don't really have anything special that I carry. I have one bag that was gifted to me recently, but it's in my car, actually, with a project in it, oddly enough. So I use that. And then the last thing she mentions here is the table runner pattern. And that pattern was something I kind of put together 4 or 5 months ago. Well, no, I guess it was about 6 months ago, because I wanted to have it ready for about the fall, Thanksgiving period of time. And I do want to update you on that. It was originally $3 on Ravelry. I've changed that to free. I kind of realized that it's a really intricate pattern, and to be honest, for it being my first one and not really knowing how to write out a pattern, I just kind of went for it. So the pattern that I designed is free. It's a table runner. It's called the Autumn Falling Leaves Table Runner. I think you can just search Autumn Falling Leaves and it should pop up in Ravelry. But that's free. I will link it below so that if you want it, you can go ahead and get that. I did change it to free because I want I want more people to knit it so I can find out what I did wrong. But I think it's really pretty, and I think everybody should have the opportunity to at least give it a shot. I remember you talking about that cloak, just didn't know you finished it. Love the gloves for your sister, and oh my god, that is so amazing that they did that for you. Congrats, everyone. Okay, so, excuse me. This is on my episode where I announced the winners for the giveaway of reaching 1,000 subscribers. So, at one point, I posted about a cloak that I had crocheted on my Instagram, and several people commented saying that they didn't remember me ever talking about it on the podcast. And I swear I had, but I just hadn't, it had been sitting unfinished for a really long time. So I couldn't remember what episode it was, but I said, you know, I thought I showed this, but I guess I didn't. So she's saying that she does remember. So thank you. I'm glad somebody remembers. The gloves for my stepsister. My stepsister's birthday was March 11th, and for her birthday, I knit her the Pioneer gloves. That's a free pattern on Ravelry. And I dyed the yarn for her, and it was my fingering weight yarn, which was the 80% wool, 20% Angora, and I dyed it in my Playing with Mom's Makeup colorway, which I think I have that right here. It was this colorway, but this is my sport weight. This is my fingering weight. Do I have, oh, here we go. I have a bare hank of that. So that's what it was on. But I knit those for her birthday. She got them, and she's very pleased with them. She loves them very much, and I'm very happy that she has done so. And the last thing that this one remembered is, oh my god, that is so amazing that they did that for you. So, of course, the gift of yarn again. I'm eternally grateful. Ever since posting that podcast, I've received 2 more bags of yarn. So it just keeps coming. Yeah, Sin City Yarn Shop. Again, we're going off of the gift of yarn here. That is some really wonderful people there. I'm definitely purchasing from them when I get to visit the city. Thanks for podcasting. So that's another thing. Sin City Knit Shop. They don't sell online. They are pretty much the only local yarn store here in Las Vegas, which is crazy considering we have millions of people here. But it's really the only yarn shop in town that's not a big name store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. So it's a really special place, and everybody there is so generous, and of course I'm going to keep continuing to support them and promote them here on this channel because they really are amazing. So if you do come to Las Vegas, be sure to check out the shop. Really like your podcast. Try the incredible custom fit top-down raglan sweater by Pamela Costello. Free on Ravelry. If you have to make some counting, you will have to make some counting and measuring, but you will get the sweater you want, or a cardigan if you want that. Otherwise, I suggest short rows in the back as another one suggested. So I actually did check this pattern out. Again, that's the incredible custom fit top-down raglan sweater by Pamela Costello. That is a great thing. I actually looked and went to download it. The way that it is set up is that you choose whatever pattern you're going to use, whether it be stockinette or garter stitch, or you're going to put some cables in there, or whatever you're going to do. You knit a swatch to find out what your gauge is, and then based on your gauge, your needle size, and then the size of the person you're knitting it for, whether that be yourself or for somebody else, there's just some multiplication things that you do to figure out how many stitches you're going to need. And then she kind of sets it up in a way that you're going to start with this many stitches. This is how you're going to set up knitting around the collar, and then you're going to add your stitches in the front and continue knitting around. It's a really neat setup that it really lends itself to helping you design your own sweater. So if you wanted to do something a little different, or something that nobody's done, or you just wanted to try something out, this would be a great way to set that up so that you could try it. So many of these. So many of these. So this one says, try the Turkish cast on or Jenny's Magic cast on. So I'm knitting a pair of socks from Toe Up for the first time that I've ever knit Toe Up socks. And I don't like magic loop. It doesn't work for me. And that's really unfortunate because I think I could do a whole lot if I just learned to do magic loop properly. But, so I knit my socks on 9-inch circulars. However, the issue with knitting toe-up socks is that you can't start on a 9-inch circular. And the only other option I really have, because I don't have sock needles on a long cable to at least get it started, all I have are double-pointed needles. So I needed a cast-on that would work to do toe-up socks across DPNs. So somebody mentioned the Turkish cast-on or Jenny's Magic cast-on. Those are really nice cast-ons, and I'm able to do them. The problem is that in order to, after you do the cast-on and to knit the first row, you need to have one set of the stitches on the cable or the cord so that it's a little bit more flexible. It's really hard to get those off, to knit those off of a double-pointed needle, because there's no way to really move it around. And so what I decided to do was a provisional cast-on, and I'm not 100% pleased with how that turned out, but I have some ideas of how I'm going to make that work for the second sock that I'm knitting. Maybe you could put a block of cubby holes above your fireplace and put your lovely new yarn in them artistically. That would be great, except I have so much yarn, and I've already done this. And also, as much as I love my yarn and it brings me joy, I also love my model trains, and my model trains are above my fireplace, and that's kind of where I want to keep them. Or some of my model trains are above my fireplace, so I'm gonna leave those as is. I like having it here in the bedroom. Also, it blocks, the sun rises like right at that window, so I kind of like having the shelf there to block out the sun. I don't like waking up to the sun. I like waking up to an alarm, because I get up so early anyway. I'm usually up before the sun. So if I were gonna take a nap in the middle of the day, this kind of helps block out some of the light. Some people are mentioning my dogs. If you haven't seen my dogs, I have two. I have Duchess and Princess. They are both Chihuahua Terriers. One is 4 years old and one is about 10 months old right now. And they are giving me a world of pain right now because the puppy doesn't want to be trained and the dog gets jealous, so she's decided that she's not going to stay trained. And it's just, it's very frustrating. More people just mentioning all my fun stuff. I'm trying to see if anybody actually has any, like, questions. This is more of a commentary thing right now. A lot of people just mentioning yarns that I've used. So, like, Wool Like by Loops and Threads. I love that. It's a super fine yarn, and it works great in place of fingering weight, and I love that stuff. Oh, somebody from Mount Sterling, Kentucky telling me to check out a yarn shop called Native Twist. I actually have a friend who grew up in Mount Sterling. His name's Josh, and we knew each other probably in high school. And he's married now and has a kid with his husband, and they live in Louisville, Kentucky now. But I remember that he's from Mount Sterling, and so when I saw that, I got kind of excited. So there's a lot of people in here. In order to win my giveaway, you had to mention your favorite yarn and your favorite pattern that you've ever knit. So I'm coming across a lot of those. Oh, there was one person in here who is a budget crocheter who makes cosplay costumes with her yarn. And I thought that was awesome. And actually, I've been meaning to get back in touch with that person because that sounds really interesting. And I want to know if she has any fun patterns or anything that I could try out. I also love that there are so many of you from other countries, like the UK. I've got a couple from Australia, Norway. I've actually made a really great friend there in Norway, and she's a lot of fun. Oh, so at one point I said I hadn't found anything comparable to Karen's Simply Soft Yarn by any other brand, and somebody mentioned that Hobby Lobby Crafter's Secret brand of yarn is very similar, so I'm thinking I might try that out at some point. I think the rest of this actually has to do with the giveaway, so I actually kind of want to just cover that a lot, and that'll be kind of where I end it. So the giveaway, a lot of you mentioned some really awesome yarns, and what I really like is that there's this awesome variety of people who prefer to knit with acrylics and people who are able to afford and love to knit with higher priced yarns. And I think that's amazing because now that I have kind of a variety, personally, yes, there's absolutely a difference, but I still love my acrylics as much as I love my wools and my other natural fibers. I don't know if I love cotton yet because I haven't knit with cotton yet, but I do have some here and here. There's some cotton interspersed in here. But I love all of my yarns, and I think what's really awesome about the people that are part of this family is that we all have different tastes, we all have different means, we all have different lives and lifestyles and budgets and different amounts of time to be able to dedicate to doing this craft, and some of us are very serious about it and some of us are not very serious about it. And I think it's just a really nice blend, and it was really cool to see all of these people coming together and saying, well, I like knitting with Red Heart because you can get a lot of it for a little bit of money, and that's great. That is awesome. That is exactly why I started using Red Heart to begin with. But then there are people who are like, I love Malabrigo. It's one of my favorite yarns, and that's great too. I actually don't have Oddly enough, in all of the yarn I was gifted, I did not get Malabrigo, which is interesting since my yarn shop carries it. No, there are so many really cool things about this community, and also just to see the patterns. A lot of them tended to be like cardigans or blankets, and I think that's a really interesting thing because those are gifts that they don't take a lot of time, they don't take a whole lot of effort if it's just kind of a plain thing, but the meaning behind it is still the same, which is that I did this out of love, I did this because you are knit-worthy or you are craft-worthy, and it brings me joy to give this to you, which is probably one of my favorite parts about this. I hesitate to say hobby sometimes because I really do find this to be more than a hobby. I think of this as a job, but not in the terms of like I have to do it. It's one of those things that I do it because I love it, and that's kind of something I lack in my professional life, which is I like my job and it allows me to do what I love, but I don't love my job. I love what my job allows me to do when I leave my job. So no, this is a really great place, and so I hope to be bringing you a lot of really cool things in the future, and I hope you will stick around for those things. Please, let's do something fun. I'm going to start a Ravelry thread, and it's going to be questions you have for the budget knitter. And what I want any and all questions related to crafting, not related to crafting. You can ask about me, about my family, about my husband, about my dogs. You can ask, what do I drive? Where do I work? You know, ask me just some really fun general questions. Let's get to know each other, and feel free to tell me a little bit more about yourself in that thread as well. So if you want to ask some questions and then maybe answer those same questions about yourself, I think that would be a really fun thing to do. And if you're okay with it, you can tell me whether or not you'd like me to read your answers on camera for other people to know. There's this really cool movement happening where there are people who are trying to celebrate the everyday knitter, not your grocery girls or your Hohi Locatelli or your Ann Budd or any of these really big name people in this community. They want to celebrate the everyday person like you and me. And I think that's a really important thing. So if you want to participate in that, I'm going to start that thread very soon. I will have it up probably around the time this video goes up. And just leave me some questions. That way I have a little bit more to answer instead of just kind of having commentary on your comments. So ask me questions. I would love to let you know a little bit more about me. I know this is a little bit less, about the knitting, but I think it's still a lot of fun, and I think it's a great way to bring people together, especially in times when it seems like everything's falling apart. So I hope you will join me and participate in that. I also want to remind you about an awesome podcast, which is called the Tightly Spun Podcast. This is Emily. She is a wonderful, wonderful human being, and this is an audio podcast, audio only, and you can find it at tightlyspun.com or on your podcast apps on Apple or Android. And it's just this beautiful podcast where she interviews the everyday knitter, which is why I'm really excited about this kind of movement that's happening. And I'm actually going to appear on that podcast sometime in May. I think May 18th is the date she told me, but I will update you as soon as I know more specifically. But it's a great podcast. Go and listen. I think she's got about 12 or so episodes. They're all amazing stories. So many amazing people doing amazing things with yarn, with fiber. There are some people who do everything. Oh my goodness. Knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, sewing. There are so many really cool crafts out there. Cross stitch or needlepoint, I think, was another one. Embroidery, I think, was another one as well. So these are things that pop up when you learn more about these everyday people who are just excited about the fiber arts. So tightlyspun.com. I will leave a link for that as well in the video description box below. I am going to try and leave anything that I mentioned that's kind of specific. I will try to leave a link or at least the name of it in the video description box below so that you can find those things if you're interested. I really hope you will check out the Tightly Spun podcast. It's really great. It's easy listening. I think every episode is maybe 45 minutes long. I think I only ran across one that was an hour and a half, but they had a lot to talk about. But no, it's really great. Please check it out. Support her. She also has an Instagram for both the podcast and for herself, and she mentions it in every episode as well. So I hope you will check that out, and then sometime in May, I hope you will listen to the episode that I appear on. So, because I'm really excited about that. It really was a great experience. Anyway, I'm going to go. I will be checking out that thread, and I will put more details about exactly what I'm looking for in that Ravelry thread about asking me questions. And then one day, we will have another one of these sessions so that you can get to know me a little better. Alright, so I am going to actually go work on a shawl that I'm a little bit behind on, and I will see you again very soon here on the Budget Knitter Podcast channel. Bye.